Good morning. I'm Rick Efford Chase, the Executive Director of Newport Downtown Development, and this is Newport Connects, behind the scenes in Newport's downtown. And I'm here this morning with Sarah Chadburn, who is our board president, and we're going to talk a little bit about Sarah's service on our board, and also a little bit about what's going on in the months of January and February with Winter Saturdays. So good morning, Sarah.
Morning.
I wonder if maybe we could start by just having you tell folks a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you've ended up here in Newport, and your work on the board.
Yep. I am originally from West Glover. I moved away for school to Burlington, and then I came back. So I've been back in the area for, the last 15 years. I work at Community National Bank. I'm a commercial loan officer there. So that's a little bit of my background.
So share a little bit about how you first came to know about what was then Newport City Downtown Development and decided to join the board.
Yep. So I had a coworker that was on the board, and she was coming off of the board, and she approached me to see if I would be interested in sitting in on a meeting just to see what it was all about. And really from there, I went to one meeting, and I was voted onto the board, and kind of the rest is history. It was a perfect match. It was things that I wanted, that I was seeing in the area, that I wanted to help. I wanted to be a part of the community, and it fit.
So how long ago was that? When did you join the board?
I think it was about probably like a little over 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago.
It was a little bit before I started as the
Yeah.
executive director,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about somewhere in there, shortly after I became the director, you became the president of the board.
Yep.
And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about kind of what the questions or the concerns were before the board during that, what I see as kind of a transition year as we kind of started off in a new direction.
So when I joined the board, really we were just coming off of COVID, and the main priority that we were dealing with at that time was the website revamp. So that was really the main thing that we were working on. There was really no committees. There was no standing committees at that time. We didn't have a lot of volunteers. We weren't doing a lot of events. So really, when I took over as board president, and Rick came on shortly after as our executive director, we really started to kind of change the trajectory of what the organization was doing and be more involved in things. Not to say we weren't back then, but it was just a different type of board, and just different priorities back then.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of what I think of as kind of the spiritual heart of whatever version of Newport Downtown Development we would like to label this 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0. There's kind of been a real shift over the last 2.5, 3 years. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your role in beginning to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we looked at it, we just said, we want to be more involved in some of these big decisions that are being made, and we want to have more of a presence. So when I took over as board president, one of the things that I feel like we really worked really well on was getting events back happening, doing more in-person things, joining forces with Newport Parks and Rec and the city, and just being a little bit more collaborative. I think it really started in events, and then, over the next 2 years, we morphed into more, economic development, and, now we have a housing board, and we have a marketing committee. So I think it was really the point was doing more events and then seeing where that took us.
In a lot of ways, I tell people that I think events are kind of the heart and soul of the organization. Like if we don't feed that part of what we're doing, or we lose the connection to the community that we've worked so hard to cultivate, most of the rest of what we're doing would kind of fall apart. So, my recollection of how we got the events work kind of kickstarted again is that I was new to the area, and I went to you and said, hey, where are the young people? Like, I know they've got to be here somewhere. And I think you told me at that point that your connection to NEK Young Professionals
Yes.
might pay off for us. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's that group first, and then
Yeah, so Northeast Kingdom Young Professionals Group is a group of young professionals. Actually, I shouldn't say young because it's mainly young at heart. That was put together, and I served on the board of that. And really, it was all about networking and getting people together in the area. So they hold events in Newport, they hold events in like St. Johnsbury, Lindenville area. So at that time, it was more networking opportunities. And there was people from all over in that group that we would see come out to events. So I said, why don't we just tap into those young professionals and see if we can maybe create a group that maybe meets and just wants to talk about things that they want to see in Newport. What would bring you here? What do you want to see? And that's where the events committee meetings, or what we call the crew, kind of turned into this really great group of 20 or so people that would show up every single month and wanted to plan things and was excited about doing things in the area. And so that's kind of where that stemmed from.
that group, if I
Yeah.
recall correctly, we got that started. Our first meeting was like April of 2022, right?
It was late. Or
So
it was around
yeah,
that
so
time,
it's been almost 3 years actually since then.
Yep.
And my recollection of that first meeting is that you had all these people in the room that you knew, and I didn't know any of them. And you introduced me, and I basically said, "Just tell me what y'all wish existed in Newport that doesn't." And I just sat there with my laptop and took notes.
Yep.
And so that eventually morphed over the next few months into the idea for Winter Saturdays. So can you talk about
Yes.
Winter Saturdays a little bit?
Yep. So we knew we wanted to do something in the area in the winter because the winter months are hard for people up here. There's not a lot to do. And I remember Rick said to me, he's like, I just booked the Gateway for 6 or 8 weeks in the winter. Let's do something there. Let's figure out what we want to do. And so we had these events meetings, and what people wanted to see was something that was family friendly, and that they could just have a good time on the weekend. So that morphed into Winter Saturdays, which is a series now. We're holding our third series this year. And basically it's a place where families can go. You get a meal that's provided by a Newport establishment. You get a meal with your entrance. There's dancing. And then in the past, we had done kids' movies upstairs, so it was kid-friendly upstairs. This year, we're changing it around. We're doing, the Mem for Magog Science Center has offered to host kids' activities upstairs. So you can drop your kids off upstairs. They can do a science experiment or something upstairs, but then they can come downstairs and dance. So it was really a way to get young families out. It was a way to get, locals out and new people out, and just really like a community gathering. And that's really what it's turned into. We've had repeat people every year, and we get people that come all the way from Canada that come every weekend, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's really a fun night. It's early, it's 6 to 9, it's affordable, and we just have a really good time doing it. It brings a lot of people out, and it's on beautiful Lake Mem for Magog, so you can't get better than that.
Yeah, though it's a little hard to see because it's all after dark.
Yes, it is.
So, but we pretty much pack the Gateway. It's usually
Yes.
somewhere between 60, 70 people and 100 people
Yep.
each week. And, the magic to me is local bands, local food,
Yep.
low cost, cash bar, and a place for kids that can just kind of flow from upstairs to downstairs, and their parents go back and forth as well.
Yep.
It just makes it really comfortable for everybody, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
So I want to pause and just go back for a moment, because this new thing you mentioned with the Mem for Magog Science and Education Center, a lot of folks probably don't know that the MEMSEC, the Mem for Magog Science and Education Center, is a relatively new project that began over the last year and a half with Mem for Magog Community Maritime, which is the same group that owns the Northern Star on Lake Mem for Magog. And this is a new effort to try and create a year-round child-friendly but family kind of oriented science and education program, working with school kids, but also trying to create events for families in the area. And they've now rented the second floor of the Gateway Center, and they're transforming it into the early stages of this new science center. So this year, they've volunteered and are going to put some, it's clear it's going to take some real time and effort on their parts to create our programming on Saturday nights in order to kind of educate and welcome families into that space and begin to open it up. So I hope folks will come out, in part because they want to learn more about MEMSEC and the work that they're doing. I'm thrilled with what they're doing down there.
Yep.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the bands for this year, because the bands clearly are the draw. It's what brings people curiosity about who's going to be playing. So do you have it enough in your head so you can kind of run through the programs for January and February?
Yep. So this year we've got a couple repeats from the prior years, and then we have mainly all new ones because we found that people really like to hear new bands, and it's exciting. A lot of people come every single week, and they're just coming, and they're just excited to hear whatever is there. So the first week is January 4th, and we have a band called Smoke Signals, which is a group that was just put together. It's my husband, Kyle Chadburn, local Shane Goodwin, and another local face, Ben Farney. So they've put together this little group. They're going to kick off our first week. It should be a lot of fun. We have Jaded Ravens, Soul Porpoise, who they played this summer at Wednesdays on the Waterfront. The Mike Goodrow Trio, which everybody knows Mike, and he's always a
really
fun
popular
person to have,
Yeah.
and yep, everybody loves him. The following week is Kyle Chadburn and the Earthbound Spirits. He also played at Wednesdays on the Waterfront this year.
Can you talk a little bit about that band? Because he's only started Kyle Chadburn and the Earthbound Spirits in the last, year or a little more now, right?
Yep, it's been a couple years. So he's recorded a couple albums. So he came out with an album recently. So he primarily played that at Wednesdays on the Waterfront, and he put together a group with some people that he's been playing with for a while, and it's just a fun. He has a good time doing it. It's great, and it's good to hear local music with people that write their own songs.
Yeah.
Which, the first week Shane Goodwin also writes a lot of his own songs too. The following week we have Ryan Sweezy and the Midnight Walkers. He's a band out of Burlington. He's also a lot of fun.
We haven't had them before, right?
We haven't had him. He's very good, and all these bands are like perfect for dancing. Everybody will have a
I
good
can't
time.
wait.
Yeah. Another band, we have Mick Maple. That band is also from Burlington area. It has a woman singer, which we love. And then the last week is Forest Station, and they're a bluegrass band.
Fabulous.
So we have a pretty good mix of music, a little bit for everybody, and we're really looking forward to it. We only have a couple weeks left before the first one.
So just to remind folks, those events start at 6 and end at 9. We typically have the food out for the first hour and then take the food away and create more space for dancing and just kind of hanging out. Yeah. And $15, we charge $15 at the door.
$15 if you come for the food, and then after 7, it's a $10 entry.
And we're pretty loose about kids. So, younger kids like below 10, 12 years old, we just let them come in for nothing. It's really, I defy anyone to find a cheaper place to have this kind of fun in the Northeast Kingdom. 2 adults and 3 kids, and you've got your childcare and everything all wrapped up into one. It's pretty great.
And if you feel like you want to come and you can't afford that, please reach out to us, because we really want it to be something that everybody can go to.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We don't quite cover our costs with those $15 a week charges. We try to make back as much of it as we can. We do pay the bands, of course, and we pay for the food. And the additional cost is the cost of drinks. So, Okay, so that's that part. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit now about kind of how that's morphed and what you've seen happening over the last year or so around the economic development work. We don't have to focus on it a lot because Dave LaForce from our board has been on this show with us, but maybe just a word about kind of where we are now and the work we've done for a year.
Yeah, so in the last year, it's amazing to me 3 years ago when I joined this board and now where we're at now. It's incredible. And the amount of growth that our organization has had is just, it's great. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just amazing. But over the last year, we created three new groups, like the three new committees. So we have, our marketing committee, we have a economic development committee, and then a housing committee, which are all brand new within the last year. Economic development has really been a driving force this year because, of course, we were involved in the master plan, which just, if you haven't seen that, please look it up on our website. And it just got approved. The final version just got approved last night at City Council. So that's out there. So now we have a lot of work to do with, just organizing that and possibly applying for a TIF. And, that committee has a lot of strong people that are very active in the community and business people on that group. So they've been very instrumental. We also have an economic development coordinator who has been volunteering his time, which, without him, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of these things. Brian Gray.
Yes.
Yep. So really, the driving force is our volunteers and, of course, our board members. So I will say, our board members are next level. They are all super active. I don't think there's a single one of us that doesn't serve on multiple committees and is at events. So that's really the success of our organization, is the fact that we have such a strong board and we have such a multitude of volunteers, whether it's economic development, events, anything.
I tell people I've been managing and directing and creating nonprofit organizations for community improvement for almost 40 years. Yeah. And this is as strong a board as I've ever worked with. Yeah. They're rock solid. Our conversations are deep and they go to the heart of what really needs to happen in the community for everyone to feel included and welcome in downtown Newport. Yep. And then folks come up with ideas and figure out how to make them so.
Yeah, it's a lot of, that's true. It's very much, I've always wanted to see this happen in Newport. Let's make it work. And that's really what the driving force of our board is, that everybody's trying to just make Newport a better place, and bring the things that we want to see. Instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, we're going out and we're doing it, which is very exciting.
Yeah, to me too.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good place to stop for this morning and just kind of repeat that volunteers are not only welcomed, but actively sought. And we'll take anybody with good spirit who wants to be constructive and a part of making change happen in Newport in a way that will include the folks who have always lived here and feel welcoming to the newer folks who arrive and feel genuinely welcoming to visitors to the area as well. So if you'd like to be involved, just reach out to us. We have an active Facebook page under Newport Downtown Development. You can find more information on our website, which is about to change again, actually, at discovernewportvt.com. And Sarah, I'm so grateful for your work and for you taking the time to come in this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.